Hey there, it's Anne Marie of the Anti-HR channel. And, I'm going to share some other random thoughts related to the upcoming election in this video. First, I want to thank all of you who watched my last video because it's over 5,000 views at this point, which is actually pretty great. Now, many of you still haven't watched the original video where I talked about Project 2025 and the specific threats it poses to workplace rights and workplace laws. And I still encourage you to watch that because that's really the context in which I, really have looked at the document and thought about the document, because I care a lot about workplace rights, especially how it negatively impacts Black people and specifically Black women in the workplace. So I really wanted to ring the alarm because I didn't hear that many people talking about the threats it poses to workplace rights. I've heard people talk a lot about other things, but when they talk about it, they only talk about it in the context of DEI, and there's a lot more to be concerned about besides DEI when it comes to Project 2025. But thanks so much to those of you who watched my last video, which was kind of a mini rant because I was kind of frustrated. I'm still very frustrated. I will say that I deleted and blocked a lot of people in the last week. And I always appreciate when people raise their hands and show me who they are so that I can delete them. Because honestly, I didn't create this platform for followers. It's nice to have them, right? But that's not why I created this channel. I created this channel to share specific information about workplace rights, about employee rights, about educating people and teaching people who want to leave discriminatory workplaces how to do so with some money in their pocket. That's primarily why I created this channel. And so much of what I talk about is in the context of that and is around that, because that's why I created this channel. And I wanted to share information that I know a lot of people don't. A lot of people who talk about HR either talk about HR in the terms of, how to get hired, or they're lawyers who are building their client base and talking about workplace issues in the context of filing a lawsuit. And I saw a gap there where no one was really talking about employment rights, how employees can actually exert their employment rights in the workplace, and also what to do if you decide you want to leave because of a bad workplace and you don't want to file a lawsuit necessarily. You want to get out. You want to get out on your own terms. And I want people to know that, yes, you can file a lawsuit, but you can also, in many instances, leave on your own with a check in hand. And I wanted to tell people how to do it because I've done it more than one time and I've helped other people do it. And I wanted to teach more people to do it. That's why I created this channel. And the only reason I'm talking about the election, as I explained before, is because this election to me is the most consequential of my lifetime. And, people, some people came in the comments like they say that about every election. No, they don't. We've only been hearing this in the last 10 years because we literally put a demagogue and a racist in the White House in 2016, right? And so we've been saying that ever since because he's a very clear and present danger to democracy in the United States of America and has done more to damage democratic principles and systems and structures in this country that for a long time we thought couldn't be damaged. We have seen all the cracks, all the gaps, all the problems and loopholes that need to be addressed in our systems, in our political system, in our structures, and our laws have been opened up because of this person, right? And this person is very clearly anti-union, anti-employee workplace rights, anti-middle class, anti-poor people. And so I feel it's my responsibility to say something, right? I've never really felt that the house was on fire until Donald Trump was elected president. I would have probably never left the United States if Donald Trump hadn't been elected president. That's just a truthful statement. Him being elected president really showed me that America may be incapable of changing, incapable of ever being a place that offers any real modicum of equality and equity to people of color, and especially to Black people. And then I'm going to say something to people who say, well, why do you talk about people of color and why do you talk about Black people? Because they're part of our society too, right? And because I think it's important for people of color to understand that Any threat to our rights as Black people is also a threat to theirs, and vice versa, right? We are also, as Black people, as I've said before in other videos, losing our empathy, which is what white supremacy does over time. And I really think it important that in order to retain your full humanity, that you must be an empathetic human being. That means you must be able to see the pain of others and care about it. And even if something doesn't touch you, you should still care about it. And I think it's very important to understand, and as I explained in other videos, why many people of color treat Black people the way they do is because they have been taught that it is necessary in order for them to be accepted into America, that they must be also anti-Black and racist towards Black people from the time they step foot. And that is something that is taught to every immigrant, regardless of their color, race, or ethnicity. They are always told by white people that Black people are bad, right? And they see it everywhere around them, and they are taught that, and they start adopting behaviors, not realizing that the same people that are telling them that Black people are bad also think they're bad and don't like them either. As you know, Puerto Rico is getting, Latino community is getting that wake-up call this week. And we've seen many other communities get that wake-up call as well. But I think it's very important for Black Americans to also understand that we have to also realize that we have our own biases as well, and we got to work on those too, right? And so I find it interesting when people, come into my comments. I've had people tell me I'm not really American, even though I was born and raised in the United States of America, because my parents are naturalized citizens from the Caribbean. So somehow I'm not as Black as you are. All of those things are divisive ideas that seek to be, in my opinion, white proximity seeking, right? The idea that you have to feel that you're better than somebody else to be validated, right, is very problematic. The only difference between the slaves in America and the slaves in the Caribbean and the slaves in Latin America was a boat ride. We all got dropped off in different places when they stole our ancestors from Africa. And I'm not going to get into a debate about whether they were stolen. They were stolen. Whether African people sold them or not, somebody sailed all the way from the other side of the world to buy them and then dropped them off in different places. And for those of you who feel that you're somehow superior because you got dropped off in America and somebody else got dropped off in South America, you need to examine your brain and examine why you believe that, why you need to believe that. Right? For those of you who can't find any compassion for people who travel by foot from the other side of South America to get to America, you need to ask yourself why. Because the argument that they're taking things away from you, no, they're not. Whether people are illegal or legal immigrants, they come here, they work hard. The majority of them, statistically, they commit the least amount of crimes. And that's just a statistical fact. The data is available. Google is your friend. They don't commit more crimes than Americans do. They're not as violent as Americans are. And they pay taxes that they don't get the benefits of. And they prop up our economy. They do jobs that Americans do not want to do. You want to go pick fruit? You want to go, clean shrimp and chickens in factories? That's really your aspirational job? These are the people who are doing some of the jobs that none of the rest of us want to do or would want to do. Even though people like Elon Musk and Donald Trump, aspire that those are the Black and brown jobs that should be occupied by people that look like you and me. But the people who are doing it are primarily illegal immigrants who are being brought in here to do those jobs. Some of them are being brought in migrant worker visas. And some of them are being hired under the table by big companies, very wealthy people who need the cheap labor in order to keep the prices at prices that Americans will pay for and line their pockets. These people are exploited by everyone. And the reason that a lot of them are fleeing their country is because of America's foreign policy. And I know this. I worked in international development for over 15 years. I've known about the things, I know things about that happen in countries that would keep a lot of you up at night if you knew. All of you, who are talking about Gaza and only talk about Gaza, but aren't aware of the things that are happening in Sudan and happening in Congo and happening in so many other places that are happening because of U.S. foreign policy. But you don't want people to come here. Well, where the hell else should they go when the U.S. government is the architect of their misery and the reason why they can't live, their countries are inhabitable, and thereby making the lives of the people who have to live in those countries miserable? And so the people flee their countries, and where do they come? They come to America because they believe that they can get a better life in America. They're not all aware of how difficult it is to have that better life when you're not white and when you're not rich. America is a country that was founded for and by rich white landowners. And the system that was created from the very beginning has always been intended to benefit primarily rich, white, quote, Christian, unquote, men. And everything that is happening is happening to continue to promote and prop that system up. And if you can't figure that out yet, it's because you're not paying attention. And so the things that we experience at work, the things that we experience outside of work, is all about a system that intends to endure. And unless you actively fight against it and actively can visualize an existence where it doesn't exist because you have actually visualized a system that will replace it, nothing is going to change. The system is operating as it was intended, and it evolves. Every time we evolve, it evolves. And if by some miracle this person isn't elected on Tuesday, they will just keep trying to insert another person. And the next person won't be an old 78-year-old demented person. It will be someone who's charming, whose words actually sound like they make sense. They will send another disciple, but they will send somebody else. And so, as President Obama said, democracy is a thing that you have to work for. Democracy is a thing you have to protect. Benjamin Franklin said, you have a republic, you have a democracy if you can keep it. It's not something that you just get to sit back on your behind and think it's just going to work out. If you don't exercise your right to vote on Tuesday, you may find that you won't have one later. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm very serious. If you've studied political systems, as I did in college, if you pay attention to what's happening in the world, as I always have, and more of us need to do, you will understand that empires rise and fall. If you study history, you'll understand that. And so people who think that this whole thing can't collapse in and on itself are fooling themselves. And those who want it to collapse, what do you think it's going to be replaced with? What do you think? Do you think it can't be worse than it is? Because it can. The Republican candidate is now talking about putting his enemies in front of firing squads. These people are very, very unwell, and their vision of the world is not necessarily aligned with those of other people and those of people who don't want to live in a society where all the rest of us are slaves to wealthy people, to white, male, wealthy people. I had someone come into my comments and say, she doesn't know who to vote for because, she's a Christian. I put that in quotes. And she doesn't like abortion, and she doesn't like, she doesn't believe, she said she doesn't believe in abortion and believe in the gays, she said. So she doesn't know who to vote for. And what I said to her was, if you don't believe in abortion, don't have one. And if you don't believe in being gay, then don't be gay. But this is a republic that was founded on the principle of separation of church and state. And so what you do as a Christian is your business. But what I do as a person who doesn't identify as Christian, even though I was raised that way, is my business. But if you're living a life that you believe that you're a follower of Christ, which I believe in Jesus Christ and that he died for my sins, but my interpretations of what Jesus said and what he wants me to believe is very different from the average Christian, because I lead with the principles of the Good Samaritan and the prodigal son. right? I believe in the principle of who is your neighbor, and that you're supposed to be a good neighbor and a good citizen in this world and look out for other people and care about what happens to other people. Not that you're supposed to be in this world trying to inflict whatever your personal standards and beliefs are on everybody else, because we live in a country that is supposed to be non-religious, that allows anyone to be whatever religion they want to be, including Christian. But you're not the only religion that exists. And there are people who want to install a Christian nationalist dogma on the entire country. And I have a problem with that. So for all of you who are trying to make a decision about who to vote for based on what your Christian beliefs are, what you need to be concerned about is who is most likely to ensure that you get to have your beliefs along with everybody else. So that if you don't believe that you shouldn't have an abortion, you don't have to have one. Right? And if you don't believe in that you should be gay, then you don't have to be gay. No one's asking you to be. We're simply saying, in my opinion, that people who are gay get to be citizens and have the same rights you do. And you have to ask yourself why that should be a problem for you when their lives have nothing to do with yours. This is where the principle of minding your business comes into play, and not worrying about what other people are doing. Keep your eyes on your own paper, instead of trying to tell everybody else how to live and wanting to create an environment where everyone else has to live based on whatever your religious beliefs are. That's a problem, people. And if you want to live in a society where people are free to worship how they want, free to love who they want, then you have to be okay with the idea that everybody isn't going to do the same thing that you are going to do. But this idea that you're going to vote for a person who is openly racist, who has made it clear that they don't believe in another democratic concept, which is the peaceful transfer of power, that election is only fair if they win. But if they don't win, then it's not fair. Who is talking about firing squads and turning the military on American citizens and giving police full immunity to murder citizens if they so desire. I can't imagine, if you really believe in protecting your rights, why you would vote for somebody who believes in those things. A person who loves to praise authoritarian governments, who desires to be like Vladimir Putin, who was elected, but now has been in power for what, 20-something years? Because, people who oppose him, mysteriously die of all kinds of reasons. Google is your friend. That's the kind of person you want to put in office, a person who may decide that they don't want to leave and then replace themselves with their kid or some other crazy person. That's the person that you want to put into office and believe is going to safeguard your rights. But you're afraid of the idea or somehow intimidated by the idea that a woman could do a better job. You have to investigate your own biases and your own issues if you can't make up your mind because you're a, quote, Christian, unquote. I was raised as a Christian, very devout Christian, actually. And so I don't know what some of the rest of y'all were taught, but I was taught that Jesus is love and that it's our responsibility to be good neighbors. I was taught a lot of things. Some of those things I still believe in, some of those things I have rejected over time. But one of the things I was taught was that it was very important to live in a place that had separation of powers and freedom of religion so that different people who had different religions could worship the way that they worship. And that's what's one of the things that make America a great place to live. And so if we lose those things, then we're just like every other authoritarian state that's trying to tell other people what religion they're supposed to be and persecutes people based on what their religions are. I'm not sure that people understand what they're opening the door to, right? Because the wolf is at the door. And the question becomes, are you going to open the door again? Because as I said, this time the guardrails are gone. This time, anybody that would be there to temper this person's worst, intentions is not going to be there. He's announcing the people that he would put in office. He's talking about putting Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a nut, frankly, in charge of public health. He's not even a doctor. He's trying to put him in charge of public health. He said he's going to make Laura Loomer, an open racist and anti-Semite, his chief of communications. These are things he has said he's going to do. Google is your friend. As I said, Google's free. Every day he tells you what he is and who he is. And I want to understand why people, especially black people, even though I believe a majority of us are not going to support this foolishness, because we know that when white people catch a cold, we catch pneumonia. So we're going to catch the most hell at the end of the day. A majority of us know that, right? But the ones who have wandered into my comment section that I had to remove, I always find that amusing. I know some of them actually really aren't black people. A lot of them are people who are, just spend their day in front of computers, from troll farms. Anytime they see Trump's name come up or Project 2025, they pop in and drop a comment. I understand that these things exist, and I don't believe every single person, but some of them actually are black people. Most of them are black men. I think I've maybe had 2 black women that came in and said they were voting for Trump, but most of the other ones that have said that I think are actual real people have been black men. And I find it amusing. Look at what he's saying about police immunity, and that he doesn't think that police should have any accountability for what they do when they're in their uniforms, which means they can kill whoever they want. And he said he believes they should receive full immunity, right? If that's not anti-black, I don't know what is. And so I just find it very interesting that people are willing to vote for this person. And I understand that some of these people are, small business owners. They don't want to pay taxes. And what does that tell you about people who don't want to pay taxes? Because they don't want to pay taxes, they're literally willing to sell democracy down the river because they don't want to pay taxes, right? And the people who come in and say, well, America was founded as a republic. Yes, it was a democratic republic, right? You're not talking to someone that doesn't know history, that doesn't read books, and gets all the information on the internet, right? I'm an actual educated person. I actually read history. I studied history. I have a degree in political science, and I have a law degree. So don't come in my comments and talk crazy stuff and think that I'm going to just let it slide, because too much is on the line, and I am not going to allow people to come in my comments and spread disinformation. America is a democratic republic. Now, that could change, but it was founded as a democratic republic. Now, is it perfect in its practice of democracy? No, but no country is, right? And I think that what we as Americans should be fighting for is perfection of that idea, not tearing it and destroying it by electing people who don't have any respect for it, right? And so I really hope that if the election outcome is what I hope it to be, I hope we don't all just go back to business as usual. I really think that this is a time for organization. This is a time for people who are claiming they want a third party. The time to organize for a third party is not during an election. It's in between elections, right? As I said before, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about Jill Stein, but I think Jill Stein is a joke. I think she's a fraud. I don't think she cares anything about black people or black people's interest. I think she's an opportunist. And I think that she is being financed by people who also don't care anything about democracy. And I will leave it at that. So I think that if serious people who want a third party should be organizing to run third party candidates at the local level, at the state level, and also for Congress and Senate and governors. If you're serious about having a real third party, that's how you do it. And you organize and you raise money, right? That's how you do it. Anyone who isn't doing that but pops up every 4 years like a cicada to be a spoiler is not serious and doesn't care anything about you, because they'll say anything to you because they know they're not going to win. So they could promise you the moon and the stars because they know it's never going to happen because they're not going to win. They're just there to siphon off just enough votes, right, for whoever pays them to do it, right? And so I can't take a party and a political candidate seriously who pops up every 4 years and says they're running for president. right? I also think her running mate is very problematic. And yes, I know he's a black man, and I still think he's very problematic. So I think that, she's not a serious candidate. No one running for third party in a country that is clearly on a two-party system is serious. If you want to change the two-party system, then you take action. The first thing you have to do is raise money, and a whole lot of it. And you have to run candidates and get them elected and have them to start to impact policy at the local level. Why? Because all politics is local. And one of the biggest mistakes that we make as citizens, especially black citizens, is we forget to vote in our local elections. But the decisions that are made on the local elections are the decisions that impact your everyday life, your local government, your mayor. You remember them? Your mayor has more impact on your life than the president of the United States ever will. And I wish more of us understood that. Your mayor, your city council members, your state legislature, your governor, they have more impact on your life than the president does. Know who your state representatives are. And if you want a third party candidate, help give money to that cause. If people are serious, I don't believe the Green Party is serious about really being a contender. And I don't think it would be bad for America to have a third party. But I think to take it seriously, they have to win at the local level first. You can't just pop up every 4 years like a cicada. You're not serious when you do that. You're just being a spoiler. A real third party, I actually think, would be a good thing for democracy. Other countries have third parties. Germany has them. France has them. I believe the UK also has a third party, though they're not as strong. They're mainly two-party as well. It's Labour and the other ones. I can't remember, the Conservatives. And they have a name, but I can't remember their name right now. But I don't think a third party is a bad thing by any means, if you want to know what I think about it. But I do think that the way it happens in America now, you can't take it seriously. And if you care right now about protecting our democracy, you can't vote for a third party. And for the people who are saying, but Gaza, my response to that is, who do you think is more likely to act in the interest of the people in Gaza if they're elected? Because the vice president doesn't have any influence on the foreign policy. The foreign policy is what the president says it is. And the foreign policy, as I said, that relevant to Palestine is the same policy that Bush had, that Nixon had. I think it's been pretty much the same since at least Nixon, if not before that. It's the same policy. It ain't new. Obama, I know how much y'all love him. Y'all love him almost much. Some of y'all love him as much as y'all love Jesus, right? Same policy when it comes to Israel. Now, President Obama did try to at least acknowledge that what Israel was doing relevant to the Palestinian people were problematic. But the policy itself and the amount of money that went to Israel out of our tax dollars, same thing. So for all of you who are trying to demonize Biden and acting like he's doing something different, he's not. He's just towing the damn line, right? And so if you don't like the Zionist foreign policies, and I don't think, criticizing Zionism is anti-Semitic, I might add. Jewish people have lots of political beliefs. Some Jewish people are very anti-Zionist, and some of them are. The problem is that the government in Israel is very Zionist, and the policies that they have, in my view, are quite problematic in terms of how they're being implemented. I absolutely believe that Israel has a right to exist, but I believe that Palestinian people have a right to live and be alive and not be murdered in mass, right? And so my question is, who believes that it will be better for the Palestinian people if Donald Trump is elected president, when he's made it very clear that he doesn't care what the Israeli government does there? So do you think less people will live or die if he's president? Same for Kamala Harris. Who do you think is more likely to require that Israel, at least at a minimum, have a ceasefire and change some of their actions in that region? I personally don't believe that it will be Donald Trump. So for the people who want to say don't vote because of Gaza, I'm like, what is your do you have an actual solution And what do you think will happen? Are you willing to sacrifice more of these people to punish the Democratic Party? Because ultimately, that's all you would be doing. But you're going to punish the people in that region even more. And also, what are your thoughts on Congo and Sudan and other places in the world, and Haiti, where people are suffering because of U.S. foreign policy and dying, and we don't even hear about them by the hundreds of thousands, but we don't hear about them, right? So I'm like, I think it's okay to walk and chew gum. I think you can care about Gaza, and you can also care about what happens in Sudan, what happens in the Congo, and what's happening, what continues to be happening in Haiti. I don't think you should be just, if you don't like genocide, you should have a problem with genocide wherever it's happening. If you don't like apartheid, you shouldn't like apartheid no matter where and when in history it happens, right? So I think we have a responsibility to be educated as voters and educated about issues, and not just get all our information from, TikTok, right? And too many of us don't read books. If you don't remember anything else I say in this video, I urge you to get a library card. Go read some books. Get some audio books or get some actual books and go read some books and learn and understand the history of not just American history. Learn a little bit about Mexico. I live in Mexico, and now I'm learning about Mexican history, and it's fascinating to me, right? It helps you understand situations. It helps you understand these issues better if you understand where they came from. Learn about how Israel came to exist. Learn about the region. Learn about how Africa got broken up and divided after World War II. Right? Learn about how that impacted the conflicts that you see on the continent and how it exacerbated certain problems. Learn about the history of the things that France and the Great Britain and other countries have done to Black and brown people all around the world, in India, in Africa, in Asia, on the continent of Asia, on the continent of Africa, in India, the country, right? You have to learn and understand that. Learn the history of America, how the West was, quote, won, unquote. What was done to indigenous people in America and continues to be done to them. We talk about genocide. Go learn your own history. Go read some books. Read Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. I read that when I was 9 because my mother gave it to me to read. Learn the history of America. Go read about the transatlantic slave trade so that you understand how Black people got to be in this part of the world. And don't just read about how they got to America. Learn about how where Brazil, which had the most slaves anywhere in the world. It's important to know information for yourself. And the only reason you're going to know that is to go read some books. And if you'd like my suggestions on books, please let me know in the comments. I'm happy to share a list. But I really think that we have to become more educated voters, have a better understanding of our own, country and its political system, so that we can understand what we're up against. And what we're up against now is a system where money has infected every aspect of our political system. Ever since the Supreme Court decided that corporations were people and that they could pour as much money as they wanted into our political system, everything has gone to hell. And so, if we want a middle class to continue to exist, and if we don't all want to be slaves to the Bezoses and the Musks and the Thiels of this world, we need to become more educated as voters and not just pay attention of who's running president. Pay attention to who's on your school board, who your mayor is. Care about all those things. And please, for the love of God, put your phone down, even if it means you don't, watch all my videos every day. Get off the TikTok and go read some books. For the love of God, while you still can, because libraries are also being defunded, right, and losing money. Go get a library card. I urge you all who watch this video, go get a library card. I think you can do it online now. There are apps now where you can access your local library electronically and borrow books electronically and listen to audiobooks. And it's free. You don't have to pay for Kindle. You don't have to pay for Audible. I've gotten rid of all of those things. Actually planning to get rid of my Amazon Prime at the end of this month when it expires. And the only reason I'm not doing it now is because I paid for the whole year, and I realize that if I cut it off today, I lose it for the rest of the month because, which I think is kind of scammy, but that's the way it works. So I was like, I'll let it run till the end of the month, and then I'm going to let it go. Because I feel at some point we have to care about how our money is being used to harm us, right? And so I personally think that more of us need to shop locally. More of us need to shop Black when and where we can. Keep our money in our community as much as we can. Support each other's businesses as much as we can. Right? And primarily shop locally and small businesses as much as we can. And let these people understand that without our money, they wouldn't be rich. If we don't buy Teslas, right? If we don't, give Amazon Prime all our money, if we don't give Walmart all our money, they don't have the money to be influencing our political system the way that we do, right? And so I think we need to care more now about these things because it's actually becoming a significant harm to our society and to our democratic systems. The fact that a small percentage of people, I think I read recently that 100 people have spent billions of dollars trying to influence who's going to be president and how we vote. 10 people or something like that, I think it was. I don't even think it was 100 people, but I'll go back and check. If I can find an article, I'll link it in the description, right? About the amount of money that has been poured into this and where the money came from, right? And so, I think we need to think through some of these things because all of these things are going to determine what your work environment is come January and how people behave in your workplace come January, right? Because people, if you feel you're catching hell at work now, think back to what it was like in 2016 and 2017. Think back to what, people marching with tiki torches and the number of anti-Black incidents that went on. And literally they said a lot of racially motivated crime went up in 2016, 2017, 2018, before COVID, when everybody had to go inside, right? And so we gotta rethink this now, right? And so, yes, I believe that your vote should also have a harm reduction impact. You should be thinking about who's going to harm you the least, and also who are you more likely to be able to influence to change policies, right? And I really hope that as people of color and Black people and other people of color, that we organize to make demands on the person that we elect on Tuesday, to demand things to be different. That I don't think that wealthy people should have more of a say in the American political system than people who are not. In a one-man, one-vote society, allowing people to pour all this money into our system, it has poisoned it. And it's poisoning our society. And I think that we should care. And I think that is an issue that people should, make demands about. And I think, not even if, she in fact wins and she does tax them more, which I think all of them need to pay more taxes, frankly. And I'm a small business owner. But I think that if you make a certain amount of money, you should pay more taxes. And the reality is, before Ronald Reagan went into office, wealthy people paid a lot more taxes. I think the tax rate for them was above 50%. And now I think it's under 30, right? And so I definitely think that they should pay more in to the system based on how much they make. And that should allow us to pay for a system that gives people health care, better health care, which I think is very important. And so I think that you can't go to sleep after Election Day. You have to make demands on your leaders and require things of them. And I think people complain and say, well, they haven't done anything for us. Well, what have you asked for? And what have you actually organized around and demanded? Because power concedes nothing without demand. Frederick Douglass said that. So you have to make demands. You don't just vote. You also then make demands. But you first vote for the person who's going to cause you the least harm and who is more likely to actually listen to you, right? But if you have a dictator, an authoritarian, they're not going to listen to nothing you say. And actually, it's their preference that you not vote at all. Some of them are throwing around the idea that the votes shouldn't matter at all and that the legislature should determine how electors vote after an election. That's another thing that's coming out of the Republican Party. Y'all need to really pay attention, right? Because if they can twist the Electoral College, which I don't even believe should exist, the Electoral College is a vestige of slavery, from slavery. The whole idea of it, what came up because during the discussion of forming the Constitution, they wanted to make sure that the poor, who were also white people, and slaves, if they ever were given the right to vote, would not be able to have their votes count more. That's why they didn't want to go with the popular vote idea. That's how they came up with this whole Electoral College thing, right? And so there are some who believe that if people vote popular and don't vote the way that they like, that they should be able to override that and direct the electors to vote how they want them to vote. That's something that's being floated by the Republican Party. So I really think people need to be concerned, to be very, very concerned, right? When you have a person who clearly doesn't like Black people, doesn't like brown people, his running mate really seems to hate women. I don't know what his problem is, but he seems to really have an issue with the idea of women working outside of the home, being independent, and having a vote. There are people in the Republican Party that are talking about how the 19th Amendment needs to be reversed, which the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. Now, there's a minority right now, but the pro-lifers used to be a minority. And the KKK didn't used to openly endorse the Republican candidate. Christian nationalists used to be a minority. Now they seem to be running the party. So somebody who's a minority today could be the majority tomorrow, especially in the Republican Party. So I really think that people need to be paying attention when people start floating these little ideas. It's because they would like to find a way to make them happy. I'm not saying they're going to, but obviously there are people in that political party who don't believe that women should have the right to vote, that would like to see the 19th Amendment rescinded. And there are people there that also believe that the state legislature should be able to override the popular vote and give the Electoral College votes to whomever the governor directs them to give it to, or the state legislature directs them to give it to, which is basically saying then that people's votes won't matter. So these are all things that we need to be aware of, and I just wanted to bring them up because I am very concerned about the fact that so many of us, some of the comments that I saw really concerned me because there were a lot of people that said certain things, and I realized some of them are probably bots and trolls, but I wanted to respond to that. Also, someone came in the comments and said they didn't like my t-shirt. And I love this t-shirt. I designed this t-shirt. And I designed this t-shirt when I started my own business. And I decided to call myself unemployable. And the idea is that I have no intention of ever working for anyone again. I'm self-employed, which is what it says. And it defines what that means to me. And I love this t-shirt. And so I decided to put the t-shirt on in a different color today to make this video, hoping that I piss off the person who said they didn't like it the first time. Because what do you care what I wear on my videos? You should care more about what I'm saying than what I have on. And it's always a woman. It's always a woman that feels that they have the right to come into my comments and comment about what I'm wearing, my appearance, whether I'm putting makeup on, when you should be paying attention to what I'm saying, because that's where the real value is, not in what I wear. But I love this t-shirt. I hope you like it. If you like it, you can actually buy one. It's linked on my storefront, and I'll link it to this video. So, it comes in lots of different colors, and I designed it. I consider myself to be unemployable because I have no intention of ever being employed by anybody but myself for the rest of my life. And, I really highly recommend entrepreneurship. I know everybody can't do it, and it's not easy. It is hard. But in a society where you're treated like crap at work, it's an alternative that I think more of us could successfully explore. And so I highly recommend that you consider it. And if you would like me to do more videos about how to make the transition from a hostile work environment to entrepreneurship, that might be something I might be willing to do. So if that's something of interest, please let me know in the comments as well. Also, one last thing before I stop this video, because it's been actually longer than I intended it to be. I will be bringing back Can HR Do That next week. And I'll put some promos up for it. But I'm going to do a new Can HR Do That not next week, the week after that. Because depending on how this election turns out, I might not be in the mood to be on the internet next week. So probably a week from next Wednesday, I will do a Can HR Do That segment where you can come in and ask questions about HR and things that HR does and doesn't do. I will be doing that. It's kind of a Q&A, and I'll explain the process and everything. And the date, I'll put that up. But I am going to bring that back now that I'm back from my travels. But my plan is to probably do it a week from Wednesday. And then I will plan to do one in December as well before I take my holiday break. So, and also there will be some holiday sales coming up, and I will announce those. My courses will be going on sale. There's going to be a big Black Friday sale. So make sure you look out for that. But I just wanted to get, these last couple things relevant to Project 2025 off my chest. Because I am bothered. I'm very bothered by the fact that I feel that people are still very underinformed about it. And while this is a document that was created by the Heritage Foundation for a while ago, the reality is that the Heritage Foundation sees an end with the next administration. And they've said that, they've articulated that, and that they feel that they now have the opportunity to implement many things that they could not implement in other Republican administrations, because they now have their useful idiot who will let them do whatever they want. And so that should be of great concern to the rest of us, right? And so and they're recruiting. I saw where they're actually recruiting people, because one of their plans is to fire a whole lot of civil servants if they're not loyal to the president. And this is unprecedented in government. Civil servants are not supposed to be partisan. Whatever your political beliefs are, you can get a job at the post office. But they're planning to change that you can't get a job in the government if you're not a Trumper, basically. If you don't believe what they believe politically, then you shouldn't be able to get a job in the government. That's unprecedented in America. So these are all things that we should be very, very concerned about, because they're out there recruiting. They're collecting resumes as we speak. You can go to their website. They're training people to come in and fill the jobs that they're planning to empty and fire people from if they don't pass some kind of partisan political litmus test. So these are all things that we should be aware of, we should be concerned about. And when we go into the ballot and fill out our ballot and we go into the voting booth, these are things that we should be paying attention to, especially as Black people, right? Because how many of us work in the government? Quite a few, right? And if this becomes the litmus test at the federal level, you could trust and believe it's also going to be litmus test at the state level. We should care about these things. We should care deeply about these things. And so again, who's the candidate that will make that happen, is more likely to allow that to happen, and who's the candidate that won't, right? And so I really hope that Election Day is on Tuesday, and I can't wait, honestly, for it to be over. I'm so sick of the political ads, because I even see them here because I use a VPN to watch TV so that I can watch Netflix and other things. And also so I can see the local news from where I live in the U.S. Because, I kind of live in two places. I spend the majority of my time in Mexico, but there are times when I'm also in the U.S. as well. So I, can still see the news there if I want to, which I really don't watch the news. I can also watch the TV shows that I like, and I also can watch other things. But unfortunately, a part of that is I see all the political ads, and it's like, oh my God. So I am really looking forward to that going away, but I'm also looking forward to hoping that the United States of America turns the page on all of this, and that it will become something. And I think that it's going to be rough over the next couple of years, regardless of the outcome. I do not believe that there's going to be a peaceful transition of power which makes me really sad because throughout my life, that always has been the case. It's never been something that you even thought about in America, and now it is something that we have to think about, and we have to think about who we need to thank for that reality, that new reality, right? And so, I hope that things don't get very bad, but I am concerned that there may be some issues that arise after the election day, but I will just be happy to not have to see the political ads and just, I just would like things to settle down. I'm really hoping that I'm wrong about that, but I just think this has been such an anxiety-inducing election year. And so I really am ready for it to be over. I'm going to be doing some videos about giving some tips for employees around transitioning out of discriminatory hostile work environments. I'm going to be giving some tips around that because, a lot of people who contact me have asked me for advice around that. And someone recently asked me what I thought about career coaching. And so I'm planning to do a little video about what I think about career coaching and other things that people can do as they start thinking about leaving jobs that are not the best for them. Because as I always say, you have to have a strategy and you have to have a plan. So I'll be talking more about how to execute your plan. I'll also be giving some more practical tips around just things that I think people should know that are more helpful for them as employees that people may not have ever told you. And so I'm going to share those things over the next couple of weeks as we start going into a new year, which I can't believe we're already at the end of the year, but we are. So I just had these random thoughts that I wanted to share around following up to the last video I did. I want to thank those of you who watched it. I still want you to go watch the original video, which I will link in this video about the threats Project 2025 poses to your workplace rights. I think it's important for you to be aware of them. And so I really want you to watch that video. I know people love to listen to my little mini rants and my random thought videos, which I appreciate. But I also would like you to watch some of the more structured videos. I did one about the EEOC as well. I really think that we need to be educated about these subjects, and that's why I'm doing videos about them. So please watch those as well. And if there's a specific topic that you would like me to speak to that is related to the workplace, employment rights issues, please drop them in the comments. I always appreciate those. And I will, look at them and also consider them as well. Thanks for watching this video. As always, HR is not your enemy, but they're definitely not your friend. But I am, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.